Welcome to Goldenmind Audiobook, a channel for disciplined minds, quiet power, and ideas that change how you think, move, and win. The Knife You Never Saw, Lessons on Trust, Betrayal, and the Cost of a Good Heart. This book is a wise, emotional, street-smart guide for people who love deeply, trust freely, and often learn lessons the hard way. It speaks to those betrayed by friends, family, lovers, and partners. Those shocked by who hurt them. Those who discovered that having a good heart without wisdom is dangerous. Chapter 1. The Danger of a Good Heart. There is a quiet danger that follows people with good hearts. It is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not look like evil. In fact, it often arrives disguised as love, familiarity, and trust. A good heart is admired by many, but understood by few. Society praises kindness, celebrates generosity, and encourages openness. From childhood, we are taught that being good is enough. That if you love deeply, forgive easily, and mean well, life will eventually reward you. But reality tells a more complex story, one people rarely prepare you for. Because while goodness is powerful, goodness without wisdom is vulnerable. A good heart believes intentions matter more than patterns. A good heart assumes people think and feel the same way it does. A good heart gives the benefit of the doubt even when doubt is deserved. And that is where the danger begins. The world does not wound you because you are bad. It wounds you because you are open. People with good hearts often mistake their inner world for a universal standard. They assume sincerity is common, loyalty is natural, and gratitude is automatic. They don't calculate motives. They feel them. They don't analyze behavior. They excuse it. They don't guard access. They open doors. Not because they are foolish, but because they are hopeful. Yet hope, when unmanaged, can become a liability. Why good hearts get hurt more often. It is not that people with good hearts experience more betrayal than others. It is that they feel it deeper. They invest fully. They give emotionally, mentally, sometimes financially, and often spiritually. When they trust with their whole chest. So when betrayal comes, it doesn't just hurt, it shatters. The shock is not only in the act itself, but in the disbelief. How could they do this? After everything I did, didn't they see my heart? But here is a hard truth many learn too late. People don't betray you because they don't see your goodness. They betray you because they do. Your kindness makes you predictable. Your forgiveness makes you accessible. Your loyalty makes you exploitable. Not everyone sees your good heart as something to protect. Some see it as something to use. Love does not automatically create safety. One of the most dangerous assumptions a good-hearted person makes is believing that love creates immunity. That once love is present, romantic love, friendship, family bonds, harm becomes impossible. But love does not erase ego. Love does not eliminate jealousy. Love does not neutralize greed. Love does not cancel insecurity. In fact, love often magnifies these traits. People closest to you have the most access. And access is power. The closer someone is, the sharper the knife they can hold, and the deeper it can go. Distance protects, but closeness exposes. A good heart tends to rush closeness. It believes time is unnecessary if intentions feel right. It bonds quickly, defends fiercely, and ignores early discomfort for the sake of harmony. But harmony built on denial always collapses. The illusion of being too good to be hurt. Some people believe the goodness will protect them. That their sincerity will inspire loyalty. That their generosity will earn respect. That their patience will soften people. Sometimes it does, but sometimes, it attracts the opposite. There are people who are drawn to light not because they love it, but because they want to feed off it. They admire your strength while quietly resenting it. They enjoy your support while plotting independence from you. They smile in your presence while competing with you internally. And the most dangerous ones. They never look dangerous. The greatest threats don't growl. They agree. A good heart struggles with this reality because it conflicts with its values. It feels wrong to assume ill intent. It feels uncomfortable to question loyalty. It feels harsh to hold back love. But wisdom is not cruelty. And caution is not wickedness. Why betrayal often feels unfair. Betrayal feels unfair because it violates an unspoken contract. A good-hearted person gives without keeping score, believing that the universe balances things out. They operate from internal integrity, not external guarantees. So when betrayal happens, it feels like a moral injustice. But morality is personal. Human behavior is situational. Not everyone plays by the same rules. Some people are loyal until loyalty costs them something. Some people are honest until honesty becomes inconvenient. Some people love until love no longer benefits them. Your values are not universal laws. This realization hurts, but it is liberating. Because once you accept it, you stop expecting people to behave like you, and start observing who they actually are. The quiet signs we ignore. Betrayal rarely arrives without warning. It usually whispers before it screams. But good hearts are experts at silencing whispers. We excuse inconsistency. We rationalize disrespect. We downplay discomfort. We interpret confusion as misunderstanding instead of information. Why? Because confronting reality threatens the emotional investment we've already made. Denial is the mind's way of protecting the heart, until the cost becomes unbearable. A good heart would rather adjust itself than question others. It would rather carry emotional weight than risk losing connection. It would rather forgive preemptively than set boundaries. But every ignored sign becomes a future explanation. Kindness without boundaries is self-abandonment. This is one of the most painful lessons a good-hearted person learns. Being kind does not require being available to everyone. Boundaries do not make you selfish. They make you safe. Without boundaries, kindness becomes an invitation. Without discernment, generosity becomes exposure. Without observation, trust becomes blind. You don't protect your heart by closing it. You protect it by guiding access. Being watchful is not paranoia. It is awareness. Calculating your steps is not manipulation. It is responsibility. Because no one will protect your heart the way you should. The first step toward wisdom. Wisdom does not begin with suspicion. It begins with honesty. Honesty about who people are, not who you wish they were. Honesty about patterns, not promises. Honesty about how situations make you feel, not how they should feel. A good heart must learn to pause before giving, observe before trusting, and listen before committing. Not to become cold, but to remain whole. The goal is not to harden your heart. The goal is to stop bleeding from unnecessary wounds. This chapter is not a warning against love. It is a reminder that love without wisdom is dangerous. As you move forward, remember this. You are allowed to be good and careful. You are allowed to love and calculate. You are allowed to trust and verify. Because the knife that hurts the most is the one you never believed could exist. And the journey of this book is not to make you fearful, but to make you aware. The kindest hearts deserve the strongest protection. Chapter 2. Love does not cancel human nature. Love is powerful, but it is not magical. It does not erase flaws. It does not rewrite character. It does not silence ego, envy, fear, or ambition. This is one of the hardest truths for a good-hearted person to accept. Because when you love deeply, you assume love changes people the way it changes you. You believe affection softens rough edges, loyalty strengthens morals, and care awakens conscience. You believe that once love is present, people will try harder, do better, and choose right. But human nature does not disappear in the presence of love. It simply adapts. Love doesn't destroy who people are. It reveals who they've always been. The dangerous assumption of emotional equality. One of the silent mistakes good-hearted people make is assuming emotional equality. You assume that because you feel deeply, others do too. Because you would never betray, others won't. Because loyalty is sacred to you, It must be sacred to them. But emotional depth is not universal. Integrity is not automatic. Loyalty is not instinctive for everyone. Some people love lightly. Some love conditionally. Some love selfishly. Some love strategically. And some only love as long as it benefits them. Not everyone loves from the same place you do. This realization can feel insulting at first. It feels unfair to accept that your sincerity is not mirrored. But understanding this is not pessimism. It is clarity. Love can coexist with harmful traits. People often believe that someone who loves them cannot harm them. But love and harmful traits are not opposites. They can exist in the same person. A person can love you and still lie. A person can love you and still compete with you. A person can love you and still betray you. A person can love you and still choose themselves over you. Love does not automatically remove insecurity, jealousy, greed, ego, fear of being overshadowed. In many cases, love intensifies these traits. The closer you get to someone, the more your existence affects their inner battles. Your growth can threaten them. Your confidence can expose their insecurity. Your kindness can highlight their selfishness. And instead of healing, some people choose harm. Why love makes us ignore reality. Love has a blinding effect, not because it is foolish, but because it is hopeful. Love wants to believe the best. It wants to see potential, not patterns. It wants to trust intentions, not outcomes. So when signs appear, disrespect, inconsistency, subtle manipulation, love explains them away. They didn't mean it. They're just stressed. They'll change. They love me. They wouldn't hurt me. But love does not protect you from patterns. Patterns are truth in motion. Excuses are often the language of attachment. The more emotionally invested you are, the harder it becomes to see clearly. Because clarity threatens connection, and the heart fears loss more than pain. The myth that love guarantees loyalty. Loyalty is not a feeling. It is a discipline. Love can create attachment, but loyalty requires character. And character is built long before you enter someone's life. A person who was disloyal before loving you does not become loyal because of you. They simply become more careful, or more creative. Love tests character. It does not create it. This is not a condemnation. It is a reality check. People do not transform simply because someone loves them well. Growth requires self-awareness, accountability, and effort. Without those, love becomes a stage where old habits perform. When love turns into leverage. One of the quiet dangers of love is how it can be used as leverage against the good-hearted. Your forgiveness becomes permission. Your patience becomes expectation. Your understanding becomes exploitation. Some people learn how far they can go by how much you tolerate. And when consequences are absent, behavior escalates. What you allow teaches people how to treat you. This is not about blame. It is about awareness. Being loving does not mean being endlessly accommodating. Love without limits teaches others that your boundaries are negotiable. The reality of self-interest. At the core of human behavior is self-interest. This does not make people evil. It makes them human. The problem arises when we pretend love eliminates self-interest entirely. People often choose what benefits them most in the moment. And when loving you becomes inconvenient, some will quietly choose themselves. When love and convenience collide, character decides the outcome. Good-hearted people struggle with this truth because they are willing to sacrifice for love. They assume sacrifice is mutual. But sacrifice is not universal. It is personal. Love does not replace discernment. Discernment is not distrust. It is intelligence. You can love someone and still watch their actions. You can care deeply and still pay attention to patterns. You can give affection without giving access. Love freely, but grant access carefully. Discernment asks, do their words match their behavior? Do they respect boundaries when emotions run high? Do they celebrate your growth or compete with it? Do they take responsibility or shift blame? These questions protect you, not from love, but from harm. The painful wake-up call. For many, the most painful lesson comes after betrayal, not because of the act itself, but because of the realization, love didn't stop them. That moment shatters illusions. It forces you to separate emotion from reality. It teaches you that love is not a moral guarantee. Betrayal teaches what love could not. And while painful, this lesson is not meant to harden you. It is meant to mature you. Choosing wisdom without losing love. The goal is not to love less. The goal is to love better. Better means slower trust, clear boundaries, observing before investing, accepting people as they are, not as you hope they'll become. You don't need to stop being kind. You need to stop being unprotected. A wise heart loves with open eyes. A truth that brings peace. Once you accept that love does not cancel human nature, something shifts. You stop taking betrayal personally. You stop internalizing others' failures. You stop blaming yourself for trusting. You realize their choices are about them. Your goodness is not the problem. Wisdom is not the enemy of love. You can be loving without being naive. This chapter is not meant to make you fearful of connection. It is meant to free you from illusion. Because when you stop expecting love to do what only character can, you begin to choose relationships with clarity instead of hope alone. And that clarity will save you from many unnecessary wounds. Love is beautiful, but wisdom is necessary, and together, they create something stronger than either could alone. Chapter 3. Betrayal rarely comes from strangers. If betrayal came from strangers, it would hurt less. If it arrived from enemies, it would make sense. If it wore a warning sign, we would prepare for it. But betrayal almost never comes from the outside. It comes from familiarity, from shared laughter, from people who knew your story, from those who sat close enough to learn your weaknesses. That is what makes it devastating. A stranger can't betray you. Only someone who was allowed close can. Why distance is safer than familiarity. Strangers lack access. They do not know your fears, your hopes, or the soft places in your heart. They don't know what you value or what you protect. Their words cannot reach deep enough to wound you, and their actions cannot destabilize your sense of self. But closeness changes everything. Closeness creates information. Information creates leverage. Leverage creates opportunity. This is not paranoia. It is psychology. The people closest to you know what hurts you. Know what motivates you. Know where you're vulnerable. Know how to gain your trust, and trust is the gateway to damage. Access determines impact. The comfort that lowers your guard. Betrayal often begins where comfort lives. Familiarity makes us relax. It convinces us we are safe. We stop watching. We stop questioning. We stop listening for subtle shifts. Comfort tells us, this person would never hurt me. And that belief becomes the blindfold. You speak freely. You reveal plans. You expose emotions. You show weakness. Not because you are careless, but because you feel at home. Comfort makes honesty easy. Betrayal makes it costly. Why betrayal is often unexpected. Betrayal shocks us because it contradicts our internal image of the person. We trust based on history, shared experiences, and emotional bonds. We assume continuity, that people will remain who they were when we first trusted them. But people change. Circumstances change. Temptations change. Power dynamics change. And sometimes, opportunity reveals character that history concealed. Time builds trust, but pressure exposes truth. A person may be loyal when loyalty is easy. They may be kind when kindness costs nothing. But when conditions shift, when envy appears, when competition arises, when fear takes over, the true values surface. The silent role of envy. One of the most underestimated forces behind betrayal is envy. Not loud hatred, but quiet comparison. Not open competition, but internal resentment. Envy often grows unnoticed, especially in close relationships. You share dreams with friends. You celebrate wins with loved ones. You grow, evolve, and move forward. And while some genuinely support you, others struggle silently. Not everyone who claps for you is happy about your progress. Envy doesn't always look like hostility. Sometimes it looks like jokes. Sometimes it looks like advice. Sometimes it looks like concern. But underneath, it is discomfort with your eyes. And when envy meets opportunity, loyalty is tested. Betrayal is a choice, not an accident. One of the hardest truths to accept is that betrayal is rarely accidental. It is a series of decisions, small ones, that lead to a final act. A thought ignored, a boundary crossed internally, a justification formed, a conscience negotiated. By the time betrayal becomes visible, it has already been rehearsed in silence. No one wakes up and betrays you. They arrive there step by step. This understanding is painful, but it is clarifying. It removes confusion. It helps you stop asking why and start seeing how. Why we defend those who hurt us. When betrayal comes from someone close, the mind often enters conflict. The evidence is clear, but the emotional attachment resists acceptance. So we defend them. We minimize the act. We search for excuses. We blame misunderstandings. We question ourselves, not because we are weak, but because acceptance feels like loss. The heart fights reality when reality threatens attachment. Admitting betrayal means admitting the relationship was not what you believed. And that realization can feel heavier than the betrayal itself. The role of power and position. Sometimes betrayal emerges when roles change. When dynamics shift. When one person grows, gains influence, or moves ahead. Power imbalance exposes intentions. A person who was supportive when you were equal may struggle when you advance. A person comfortable leading may resent following. A person who felt needed may feel threatened when you become independent. Some people are loyal to your position, not your person. This kind of betrayal is especially painful because it punishes growth. It teaches a cruel lesson. Sometimes, success changes how others treat you. Recognizing betrayal without becoming bitter. Awareness does not require bitterness. Understanding betrayal does not mean living in suspicion. It means learning to separate closeness from access. Not everyone close deserves full transparency. Not everyone familiar deserves full trust. Not everyone supportive deserves full inclusion. Closeness is emotional. Access is strategic. You can love people and still limit what they know. You can care deeply and still protect sensitive parts of your life. This is not deception. It is discernment. The healing perspective. Betrayal has a way of reframing relationships. It strips illusions. It forces honesty. It reveals who people are under pressure. As painful as it is, it teaches a lesson few other experiences can. Betrayal educates the heart faster than comfort ever could. It shows you the importance of boundaries. It teaches you to observe patterns. It reminds you that trust should grow, not be granted instantly. And most importantly, it helps you stop idealizing people. A shift in understanding. The goal is not to push everyone away. The goal is not to become guarded against the world. The goal is to understand that intimacy should be intentional. Let people earn their way into your inner world. When you accept that betrayal rarely comes from strangers, you stop fearing the unknown and start paying attention to the known. You learn to observe behavior over time. You allow trust to be built in layers. And with that, you regain control. Because betrayal loses its power when you understand how it works. And understanding is the first step toward wisdom that protects without hardening, and awareness that preserves your heart without isolating you. Chapter 4. The Price of Ignoring Red Flags. Red flags are rarely dramatic. They don't arrive with noise or urgency. They don't announce themselves as danger. They appear quietly, often small enough to dismiss, subtle enough to excuse, and familiar enough to ignore. That is why they are dangerous. Red flags are not loud warnings. They are soft truths we choose not to hear. Why red flags feel easy to dismiss. Most red flags don't look like deal breakers at first. They look like mood swings, inconsistency, sharp words disguised as jokes, apologies without change, promises without follow-through. They feel minor, and because they don't cause immediate damage, they feel unworthy of confrontation. Good-hearted people are especially skilled at minimizing them, not because they lack intelligence, but because they value peace, connection, and understanding. They say, "Nobody is perfect. They're going through a lot. It's probably not intentional. I don't want to overreact." But red flags are not about perfection. They are about patterns. Small signs are not small when they repeat. Emotional investment clouds judgment. The more emotionally invested you are, the harder it becomes to interpret warning signs honestly. Attachment creates bias. You want things to work, so your mind edits reality to protect that desire. You focus on good moments. You remember past kindness. You cling to potential. And slowly, you begin negotiating with your intuition. The heart bargains when the truth feels inconvenient. Red flags then become background noise, noticed, but not acted upon. The cost of explaining away disrespect. One of the most ignored red flags is subtle disrespect. Not loud insults, but small violations. Being talked over. Boundaries being dismissed. Your feelings being minimized. Your time being undervalued. These moments sting, but they don't always feel serious enough to address. So they pass. But unaddressed disrespect grows. What is tolerated becomes repeated. Disrespect tests limits. When there are no consequences, the behavior escalates. Not because the person is necessarily cruel, but because they learn what you will allow. Inconsistency is a message. Inconsistency is often mistaken for complexity. We tell ourselves people are layered, emotional, or unpredictable. But inconsistency is information. When someone's words don't match their actions, believe the actions. When effort fluctuates based on convenience, pay attention. When commitment depends on mood, take note. Consistency reveals intention. People do what matters to them, consistently. Anything else is preference disguised as circumstance. Why intuition speaks first. Before logic forms conclusions, intuition reacts. That tight feeling in your chest. That quiet discomfort. That inner pause when something feels off. Intuition doesn't speak in sentences. It speaks in sensations. But good-hearted people often override it. They trust explanation over instinct. They assume doubt is negativity. They silence inner warnings to preserve outer peace. Ignoring intuition is often the first betrayal. Not of others, but of self. Red flags don't mean immediate exit. Not every red flag demands immediate separation. But every red flag demands attention. The problem is not noticing red flags. The problem is ignoring them repeatedly. A single red flag is a signal. Multiple red flags form a direction. Observation should lead to boundaries. Boundaries should lead to clarity. Clarity should lead to decisions. When hope becomes dangerous. Hope is powerful, but when it replaces action, it becomes harmful. Hoping someone will change without evidence keeps you stuck. Believing in potential while ignoring reality delays necessary choices. Hope without accountability is self-deception. Change is not promised by words. It is proven by behavior over time. The accumulated damage. The real cost of ignoring red flags is not the final betrayal. It's the slow erosion of self-trust. Each time you silence your intuition, you weaken your confidence. Each time you excuse behavior that hurts you, you teach yourself to accept less. Long-term pain is built from short-term silence. By the time betrayal occurs, the signs feel obvious in hindsight. And that realization hurts almost as much as the betrayal itself. Learning to respond differently. Responding to red flags does not require confrontation every time. Sometimes it requires observation. Sometimes it requires distance. Sometimes it requires asking direct questions. Sometimes it requires walking away quietly. Wisdom is knowing when to speak, and when to step back. Not everyone deserves explanations. Not every situation deserves energy. Your responsibility is not to fix people. It is to protect yourself. Choosing awareness over comfort. Comfort delays clarity. Awareness demands courage. Choosing awareness means being willing to feel uncomfortable early to avoid devastation later. It means valuing peace of mind over temporary harmony. Short-term discomfort prevents long-term damage. A quiet promise to yourself. Learning to recognize red flags is not about becoming suspicious. It's about becoming honest. Honest with what you feel. Honest with what you see. Honest with what is being shown to you consistently. You don't need proof to pause. You don't need permission to protect yourself. You don't need validation to set boundaries. Your awareness is enough. This chapter is a reminder that red flags are not meant to scare you. They are meant to guide you. They are signals asking for attention, not panic. When you learn to respect them, you stop being shocked by outcomes. And when you stop ignoring red flags, you stop walking willingly into heartbreak. Chapter 5. Trust is earned in patterns, not promises. Promises are easy to make. They cost nothing in the moment. They sound good, feel reassuring, and create hope. But patterns tell the truth. Words introduce people. Behavior explains them. This chapter is about the quiet difference between what people say and what they repeatedly do, and why learning that difference saves you from deep disappointment. Why promises feel so convincing. Promises appeal to emotion. They arrive at vulnerable moments. After mistakes, during conflict, or when reassurance is needed most. They sound sincere, especially when spoken with emotion. I'll change. I won't do it again. You can trust me. I've learned my lesson. Good-hearted people want to believe these words. Not because they are naive, but because they believe in growth, forgiveness, and second chances. Belief in people is not weakness. Blind belief is. Promises, however, are intentions, not evidence. Patterns are behavior over time. A pattern is what someone does when there is no pressure to impress you. It is how they act when things are normal, inconvenient, or uncomfortable. Patterns reveal what someone prioritizes, how they handle responsibility, whether they respect boundaries, how they respond to accountability. Consistency is character in motion. One apology followed by repeated behavior is not growth. It is a cycle. Why words often replace effort. Some people use words to avoid change. They promise improvement because promises delay consequences. As long as hope exists, accountability can be postponed. When words replace action, nothing changes. This doesn't always come from malice. Sometimes it comes from emotional immaturity. Sometimes from fear of loss. Sometimes from habit. But intention without action still produces harm. The trap of emotional persuasion. Emotional delivery can be misleading. Tears, passion, and intensity can make promises feel genuine. But emotion does not equal transformation. Feeling sorry is not the same as doing better. Change requires self-awareness, consistent effort, willingness to be uncomfortable. Anything less is temporary. Why good hearts trust too quickly. Good-hearted people often give trust based on sincerity rather than proof. They believe honesty should be met with belief. They value transparency and expect it in return. But trust is not a gift. It is a process. Trust should grow, not be granted. Giving trust too early exposes you to behavior you're not prepared to handle. Reading the right signs. Instead of focusing on what people say, watch how they act when no one is watching. How they treat people who can't benefit them. How they respond when they're wrong. How they behave when you say no. Character shows itself when there is nothing to gain. These moments reveal truth far more accurately than declarations. Patterns don't lie. People do. People can say anything. They can sound convincing, remorseful, and sincere. But patterns require effort, discipline, and consistency. They cannot be faked for long. A pattern is the language of truth. When you feel confused, look for the pattern. Confusion usually means words and actions are misaligned. Why we ignore patterns we don't like. Acknowledging patterns often requires difficult decisions. It may mean setting boundaries. It may mean stepping back. It may mean letting go. And loss is frightening. So we focus on words instead, because words keep hope alive. Hope becomes dangerous when it replaces observation. Trusting slowly is not punishment. When you take time to trust, you are not punishing others, you are protecting yourself. Trust built slowly is stronger, clearer, and more resilient. Slow trust prevents fast regret. People who deserve trust will respect your pace. Those who pressure you to trust quickly often benefit from urgency. When patterns finally become clear, there comes a moment when repetition removes doubt. When behavior confirms what intuition suspected. That moment is painful, but it is also freeing. Clarity hurts once. Confusion hurts repeatedly. Choosing to believe patterns over promises restores self-respect. A healthier way forward. Trust does not disappear after betrayal, it evolves. It becomes more intentional, grounded, and selective. You learn to observe longer. Listen closely. Act thoughtfully. Protect your inner world. Wisdom trusts carefully, not fearfully. This chapter is not about becoming cynical. It is about becoming precise. Because when you trust patterns instead of promises, you stop being surprised by outcomes. And that shift alone can save you from many unnecessary wounds. Chapter 6. Calculated living is not wickedness. There comes a point in life when innocence must grow into intelligence. Not because the world is evil, but because it is complex. Many people confuse being calculated with being cruel. They believe that thinking ahead, observing quietly, and protecting oneself is a sign of bad character. Especially those with good hearts often feel guilt for becoming cautious, as though wisdom somehow stains their purity. But calculated living is not wickedness. It is self-respect. Wisdom does not make you cold. It makes you intentional. Why caution feels uncomfortable at first. For someone who leads with the heart, caution feels unnatural. It feels like withholding. It feels like mistrust. It feels like a loss of openness. You may even feel as though you are betraying who you used to be. But growth always feels like betrayal to an older version of yourself. You are not becoming someone else. You are becoming more aware. Calculated living does not mean assuming everyone has bad intentions. It means accepting that intentions alone are not enough to guarantee safety. The difference between being guarded and being closed. Being closed is shutting everyone out. Being guarded is letting people in gradually. One is fear-based. The other is wisdom-based. Walls isolate. Boundaries protect. Calculated people still love, care, and connect, but they do so without surrendering control of their inner world too quickly. Why emotional transparency should be earned. Your emotions are valuable. Your vulnerabilities are powerful. Sharing them indiscriminately is not bravery. It is exposure. Not everyone deserves access to your fears, plans, or struggles. Access should be earned, not assumed. When you reveal too much too soon, you give others influence before they've shown responsibility. Calculated living and emotional discipline. Calculated living requires emotional discipline, the ability to pause before reacting, think before speaking, and choose responses instead of acting on impulse. This does not suppress emotion. It channels it. Control is not the absence of feeling. It is mastery over it. Emotional discipline protects you from saying too much, trusting too fast, or reacting in ways that can be used against you later. Why over-availability is risky. Being constantly available feels kind, but it often teaches others to take you for granted. When you are always accessible, your time loses value. Your presence becomes expected. Your absence goes unnoticed. Scarcity creates respect. Consistency creates reliability. Calculated living means knowing when to step back. Not to punish, but to preserve balance. Strategic distance is healthy. Distance allows observation. It creates space for patterns to reveal themselves. It helps you see how people act without your constant presence or support. Distance doesn't destroy relationships. It exposes them. Those who value you will respect the space. Those who benefit from your availability will resent it. Why wisdom looks like coldness to the immature. Not everyone understands calculated living. Some will interpret your boundaries as pride. Others will see your silence as arrogance. Some may accuse you of changing. Let them. People who benefited from your lack of boundaries will always complain when you create them. You do not owe explanations for protecting yourself. Calculated living and integrity. Being calculated does not mean manipulating others. It means aligning your actions with your values. It means thinking long-term instead of reacting short-term. True calculation serves peace, not power. You calculate to avoid harm, not to cause it. Letting go of guilt. One of the final stages of growth is releasing guilt for no longer being easily accessible. You learn that being selective does not make you selfish. It makes you safe. You can be kind without being available. Calculated living allows you to choose relationships consciously instead of emotionally. A quiet strength. There is a quiet confidence that comes with calculated living. You speak less but observe more. You give slowly but sincerely. You move carefully but freely. The strongest people don't rush. They understand timing. This chapter is a reminder that wisdom is not a flaw, it is a refinement. Calculated living does not strip you of kindness. It protects it, because a good heart that survives is far more powerful than one that is constantly wounded. And protecting your heart is not wickedness, it is responsibility. Chapter 7. When love makes you blind. Love is a powerful force, capable of elevating the human spirit, but it can also distort perception. It is a lens through which we interpret the world, often more vividly than reality. When you are deeply attached to someone, your mind tends to soften flaws, reinterpret mistakes, and justify behavior that would otherwise be unacceptable. This is the quiet danger of love. It can make you blind to truths that should protect you. The heart often sees what the eyes cannot, or refuses to see what they do. The illusion of perfection. When we love, we project ideals onto the people we care about. We focus on potential rather than reality, interpreting shortcomings as temporary, forgivable, or inconsequential. A late reply becomes a busy schedule. A harsh word becomes stress or fatigue. A broken promise becomes a one-time mistake. Love has a way of rewriting mistakes as exceptions. This tendency is not weakness, it is hope. But hope without clarity can become dangerous. When you forgive before the lesson is learned, you create a pattern where boundaries dissolve and behavior repeats. Attachment clouds judgment. Attachment is a form of emotional investment. It binds you to a person through shared history, intimacy, and memories. The deeper the attachment, the harder it becomes to evaluate reality objectively. You excuse actions that harm you. You reinterpret betrayal as misunderstanding. You overvalue apologies and undervalue consequences. The deeper you care, the more easily your eyes are covered by your heart. The more invested you are, the more vulnerable your perception becomes. And vulnerability, when unguarded, becomes a doorway for betrayal. Why we protect those who hurt us. Sometimes we protect people who are harmful not because they deserve it, but because of what we stand to lose emotionally. You fear the loss of love, the end of familiarity, the judgment of others, the shame of being wrong about them. This fear creates a cognitive dissonance where harm is ignored or rationalized. We sometimes defend the hands that wound us because letting go feels unbearable. Love makes you believe that caring makes everything better. But caring does not always fix character. The cost of excusing behavior. Excusing harmful behavior repeatedly teaches a subtle lesson, that you are willing to accept it. Every time you overlook disrespect, dishonesty, or neglect, you reinforce tolerance for behavior that undermines your heart. Excusing harm does not heal it. It invites repetition. Even small infractions, when consistently overlooked, accumulate into patterns of betrayal that are difficult to dismantle. When blindness becomes dangerous. Blindness in love is dangerous because it delays recognition of betrayal, prolongs emotional harm, weakens self-trust, normalizes disrespect. By the time clarity arrives, the impact of repeated disregard can be devastating. The heart can forgive endlessly, but it cannot undo lessons ignored. The role of idealization. We often fall in love with what someone could be, rather than who they are. This idealization creates a mismatch between perception and reality. You focus on dreams, promises, and potential while ignoring evidence of incompatibility or harmful patterns. We sometimes love illusions more than reality, and pay for it with our hearts. Idealization is a trap because it delays judgment. While you wait for change, your well-being is at risk. Signs that love is distorting your vision. Awareness begins with observation. Notice when you make excuses for repeated mistakes. You dismiss red flags to maintain harmony. You feel discomfort but silence it for the sake of connection. You rationalize actions that compromise your values. Love that blinds does not come from the other. It comes from unchecked hope within you. Recognizing these signs allows you to regain perspective without extinguishing love entirely. Balancing love and awareness. Loving wisely means observing without losing compassion. It means caring deeply while maintaining discernment. You can offer love without giving unrestricted access. Forgive without forgetting patterns. Invest emotionally without surrendering control. A heart that loves with eyes open is both brave and wise. The goal is not to harden your heart but to protect it. Being aware does not diminish love. It strengthens it by preventing unnecessary harm. Learning from blindness. Experiencing the consequences of love-induced blindness is painful, but it is also transformative. It teaches you the value of boundaries, the importance of emotional patience, the necessity of trusting evidence over feelings, the difference between caring and enabling. Blind love may hurt once, but love with clarity protects forever. Moving forward without losing heart. After recognizing the distortions of attachment, you can cultivate clear-eyed discernment, healthy skepticism without cynicism, compassion without compromise, emotional generosity balanced by personal protection. This chapter reminds you that love should elevate, not endanger. That caring deeply does not require sacrificing awareness. That forgiveness is powerful, but so is wisdom. Love is not weaker when guided by eyes that see clearly. It is stronger. By learning to observe without losing warmth, to protect without hardening, and to trust without ignoring evidence, you begin a path toward relationships that nurture rather than wound. Chapter 8. The Shock of Recognition. There is a moment in life when clarity hits like a thunderclap. A moment when the illusions dissolve, and you see someone exactly as they are. That person you trusted, loved, or believed in, the mask falls away, and the truth is undeniable. This is the shock of recognition. It is not the act of betrayal that breaks you. It is seeing clearly who betrayed you. It is a painful, disorienting, and humbling experience. It forces you to confront the fact that some people were never who you thought they were, and some relationships were never as safe as you believed. The moment feels unreal. At first, the shock is disbelief. You replay every interaction, every conversation, every shared moment, trying to locate signs you missed. Your mind searches for mistakes, excuses, or anomalies that could soften the truth. You ask yourself, did I misread them? Could it have been a misunderstanding? Am I overreacting? Disbelief is the mind's defense against pain too large to accept all at once. But the signs are often there. Your intuition whispered, patterns hinted, red flags waved, and you ignored them. Now, the evidence can no longer be denied. The emotional avalanche. Recognition triggers a flood of emotions. Hurt, anger, betrayal, sadness, confusion, and sometimes guilt. It is not a single feeling but a storm, overwhelming and consuming. You might feel shock at the betrayal, anguish at the loss, frustration at your own judgment, fear of having been naive. The heart reacts violently to the collision of love and reality. This emotional avalanche is natural. It is proof that you cared deeply, that you invested, and that your heart was open. The danger of self-blame. Many people respond to recognition by blaming themselves. I shouldn't have trusted them. I should have seen it coming. I was too naive. While reflection is healthy, excessive self-blame is destructive. The betrayal is theirs. The misjudgment is yours only in terms of lessons learned. Self-blame is not insight. It is punishment for trusting. Your goodness is not the problem. Your trust is not the crime. The lesson is in how you respond and grow. Seeing the knife for what it is. The shock often comes with a metaphorical image. The knife. It is not a literal object, but the awareness of harm inflicted by someone you let close. The startling reality is that the person you thought was safe, the one who shared laughter, secrets, or intimacy, was capable of piercing your heart. The most painful cut is never from strangers. It is from hands you welcomed. This recognition forces a confrontation with human complexity. People are capable of love and harm simultaneously. Being able to see both is part of maturing emotionally. The role of expectation. Shock hits hardest when expectations clash with reality. You expected loyalty, care, respect, and truth. Instead, you encounter deceit, selfishness, or indifference. The pain is compounded by the mismatch between what you hoped for and what exists. Shock is the distance between expectation and truth. Accepting that human behavior does not always align with our desires is the first step toward emotional resilience. Why some recognitions are worse than others. The closer the bond, the deeper the pain. Betrayal by a friend who knew your secrets. A family member who should protect you. A lover who promised forever, strikes harder than betrayal by a distant acquaintance. Proximity amplifies impact. This is why betrayals within intimate circles are so shocking. You trusted proximity to guarantee loyalty, and it does not. The power of observation after the shock. Recognition, while painful, provides clarity. It allows you to finally see patterns objectively. Past actions that were once confusing suddenly make sense. You understand the subtle manipulations, the ignored boundaries, the repeated inconsistencies. Shock clears the fog. Pain sharpens vision. This clarity gives you the power to act with intelligence instead of emotion. It transforms confusion into insight and vulnerability into strategy. Processing grief without losing yourself. Shock often brings grief, not only for the relationship but for the version of yourself who trusted blindly. This grief is valid and necessary. Processing it requires acknowledging your pain, accepting the truth without denial, releasing illusions, reclaiming personal power. Grief is not weakness. It is recognition of loss and a step toward renewal. The aim is not to suppress emotion, but to channel it toward growth and understanding. Avoiding bitterness. It is tempting to respond with anger, resentment, or revenge. But bitterness binds you to the past and amplifies pain. Instead, recognition should lead to awareness and cautious wisdom. Bitterness prolongs the wound. Understanding closes it. You can remain empathetic to human complexity without subjecting yourself to repeated harm. The lesson in recognition. The shock of recognition teaches. People are not always what they seem. Trust must be earned, not assumed. Boundaries are essential. Awareness protects without hardening. Recognition hurts once. Wisdom protects forever. It forces you to confront uncomfortable truths, separate yourself from illusions, and rebuild relationships based on clarity rather than hope. Turning shock into strength. When you face the truth fully, the pain transforms into power. You learn to observe without blind attachment, to love with discernment, and to interact with intention. Those who survive recognition with their heart intact do not merely endure, they evolve. This chapter reminds you that shock is not the end. It is a pivot point, a chance to rebuild, redefine, and reclaim your emotional authority. The person who hurt you may remain unchanged. You, however, have the choice to grow stronger, wiser, and more resilient. The shock of recognition is painful, but it is also the doorway to invulnerability without bitterness. Chapter 9. Learning without losing. Your soul. Life has a way of teaching lessons in ways we would rather not experience. Betrayal, heartbreak, disappointment, they are all teachers disguised as pain. But there is a subtle, vital distinction between learning from life and allowing life to harden you. This chapter is about navigating that balance, absorbing lessons without sacrificing your kindness, your trust, or the essence of who you are. Wisdom is learning from pain without letting it steal your heart. The danger of hardened hearts. Many who endure betrayal try to protect themselves by building walls. At first, walls feel safe. They shield you from further harm. But over time, walls become prisons. You stop trusting even when it's safe. You assume motives are malicious before evidence appears. You isolate yourself emotionally to prevent vulnerability. Hard hearts survive, but soft hearts thrive when protected by awareness. Hardened hearts survive incidents. They endure, but they often lose their ability to connect deeply. Life lessons are meant to guide you, not to cage you in suspicion. The difference between awareness and bitterness. Awareness is deliberate. Bitterness is reactive. Awareness observes patterns, respects boundaries, and makes intentional choices. Bitterness reacts to emotion, judging the world and assuming malevolence everywhere. Awareness asks questions. Bitterness shouts accusations. When you learn without losing your soul, you cultivate discernment without cynicism. You protect yourself without punishing others unnecessarily. You grow wiser without growing cold. Transforming pain into insight. Every betrayal, disappointment, or heartbreak contains a lesson if you are willing to extract it. Pain is not meaningless. It is a signal, a teacher guiding you to clarity. Ask yourself after every hurt. What did this reveal about the other person? What did this reveal about my judgment? What can I do differently next time? How do I protect myself while remaining true to my heart? Pain is a tutor. Reflection is the test. Wisdom is the reward. By processing hurt this way, you avoid carrying unnecessary emotional baggage while retaining your capacity to love and trust. Maintaining compassion amid lessons learned. Learning does not mean hardening. You can protect yourself and still care for others. Compassion is not weakness. It is a strength that thrives when paired with discernment. A protected heart that still cares is more powerful than an exposed heart that bleeds endlessly. Compassion allows you to see the full spectrum of human behavior: kindness, selfishness, love, betrayal. You no longer assume others are like you, but you do not assume they're your enemy either. Boundaries as the soul's guardrails. One of the most effective tools for learning without losing your soul is boundaries. Boundaries are not barriers. They are guardrails that guide interactions safely. They let others know what is acceptable and what is not. They protect your emotional energy. They allow you to give without overextending. Boundaries do not harden the heart. They preserve it. Boundaries ensure you can continue loving and trusting wisely, even after repeated disappointments. Turning betrayal into a mirror. Every act of betrayal, whether by a friend, lover, or family member, reflects truths about human nature. It also reflects truths about you, what you value, what you tolerate, and how deeply you care. Reflection allows you to identify patterns you may have overlooked. Recognize behaviors that no longer serve you. Adjust your approach without losing generosity of spirit. Betrayal can either break you or teach you. The choice is in your reflection. Cultivating emotional resilience. Learning without losing your soul requires emotional resilience. The ability to feel deeply, respond intentionally, and recover without bitterness. Resilience is built over time by observing patterns before acting, protecting emotional energy, choosing relationships consciously, accepting reality without denial. Resilience is the art of staying soft in a world that often seeks to harden you. Resilience is not about avoiding pain. It is about absorbing it, learning from it, and walking away intact. The strength of self-knowledge. Knowing yourself, your values, triggers, limits, and desires, is critical. Self-knowledge prevents you from giving away pieces of your soul to people who don't deserve them. The person who knows themselves well rarely loses themselves in the chaos of others. It allows you to recognize unhealthy patterns quickly, make decisions aligned with your heart and mind, offer love without self-sacrifice, protect yourself without suspicion, forgiveness without surrender. Forgiveness is powerful, but it must not be confused with surrender or naivety. Forgiving someone does not require opening yourself to the same harm again. Forgive to free yourself, not to invite back the pain. True forgiveness lets you release emotional burden while maintaining discernment and healthy boundaries. The art of moving forward. Learning without losing your soul is ultimately about moving forward with integrity. It is about retaining your kindness while strengthening your awareness. Let experience refine your judgment. Let heartbreak enhance your wisdom. Let betrayal teach vigilance, not mistrust of all. Let growth become your response to pain. A soul that learns from life but refuses to harden is unstoppable. Conclusion. Strength without hardness. You can endure betrayal, heartbreak, and deception without losing the essence of who you are. You can be both gentle and wise, compassionate and guarded, trusting and discerning. The path is not easy. It requires reflection, courage, and discipline. But it is possible, and necessary, for anyone who wants to navigate life fully while preserving their heart. Learn, protect, and grow, but never trade your soul for safety. Chapter 10. Becoming untouchable. Without becoming lonely. The final lesson in this journey is perhaps the most delicate. How to protect your heart so thoroughly that betrayal, deceit, and unnecessary pain can no longer touch you, without closing yourself off from love, joy, or connection. True invulnerability is not being alone. It is being selectively present. This chapter is about mastering the balance between emotional protection and authentic connection, ensuring your heart survives and thrives. The myth of complete safety. Many people assume that to avoid being hurt, they must isolate themselves. They retreat from relationships, friendships, or intimacy entirely. But this is not protection, it is evasion. Being untouchable does not mean being untouchable by life. Life will still challenge, surprise, and sometimes wound you. Isolation is the enemy of fulfillment. Awareness is its guardian. The goal is not to remove all risk. It is to engage with awareness, so that risk does not become damage. Selective vulnerability. The heart must always have room to feel, love, and connect, but not indiscriminately. Selective vulnerability means choosing who receives your trust, letting people earn emotional access, observing behavior before revealing deeper layers of yourself, protecting your vulnerabilities as you would precious treasure. Your soul is not a public park. Let only the careful enter. By doing this, you maintain emotional intimacy without inviting unnecessary pain. The power of boundaries. Boundaries are the backbone of being untouchable. They are clear statements of what you accept and what you do not. They are both shields and bridges. They protect, but they also guide healthy connections. Boundaries prevent exploitation. Boundaries preserve energy. Boundaries teach respect. Boundaries allow love to flow safely. A guarded heart does not repel love. It teaches love to respect its space. Boundaries do not make you cold. They make you free to choose the relationships that matter most. Discernment as armor. Discernment is the mental clarity to see people and situations for what they are, not what you wish them to be. It is the ability to recognize patterns, motives, and intentions without letting emotion cloud judgment. It tells you when someone deserves trust. It warns you when someone poses a risk. It guides decisions without sacrificing kindness. Discernment is the shield of the soft-hearted. By cultivating discernment, you can walk through life with openness and still remain untouchable. Love without dependency. Being untouchable is not about detachment. It is about non-dependent love. You can care for others without relying on them for validation. You can give affection without needing reciprocation to feel whole. You can maintain generosity without losing yourself in the process. Love that is free from dependency cannot be used against you. When you love this way, betrayal loses its power. The heart remains strong, regardless of others' choices. Emotional independence. Emotional independence does not mean rejecting help, friendship, or intimacy. It means that your sense of self, your peace, and your joy are not contingent on someone else's behavior. You celebrate without needing applause. You forgive without needing approval. You heal without needing permission. The untouchable heart thrives because it is whole unto itself. Independence allows you to connect fully while being anchored in your own strength. The role of wisdom in relationships. Wisdom is the final tool for being untouchable. It is the culmination of lessons learned, betrayals survived, and heartbreak endured. It allows you to trust slowly. It helps you love wisely. It teaches you to invest in people who respect your heart. It ensures you do not give your soul where it is not valued. Wisdom is the invisible armor no betrayal can penetrate. Wisdom prevents you from repeating mistakes while keeping your capacity for joy intact. Being untouchable without becoming lonely. The paradox of emotional safety is that complete isolation guarantees protection, but also guarantees loneliness. The heart must engage, or it atrophies. Being untouchable means loving fully but wisely, connecting deeply but selectively, feeling openly but discerningly. Solitude is safe. Connection is alive. The untouchable heart knows both. You can remain open without being naive. You can allow people close without losing yourself. You can live fully without handing control of your peace to anyone else. The strength of a guarded heart that loves freely. The untouchable heart is not devoid of emotion. It is strategic, intelligent, and resilient. It experiences life fully while refusing to be destroyed by it. It knows when to forgive and when to distance. It knows when to invest and when to step back. It knows when to trust and when to observe. The strongest hearts are not those that never hurt. They are those that recover without losing grace. This heart is not cold. It is calm, aware, and powerful. It can endure betrayal, heartbreak, and disappointment without surrendering its essence. Closing wisdom. To become untouchable is to master awareness, discernment, and selective trust. It is to live intentionally, love authentically, and protect your emotional core without sacrificing connection. An untouchable heart is not unreachable. It is simply unassailable. When you cultivate these qualities, life no longer surprises you with pain you could have avoided. You walk through relationships with clarity, confidence, and courage. You retain your kindness. You preserve your joy. You remain human. And most importantly, you survive. You thrive. You love, fully, wisely, and fearlessly. The heart that knows itself cannot be destroyed. It can only become stronger.